3, you know the fourth. If you define 5, you know the fourth. You know the if you define 3, you know the fourth. If you define 5, you know the sixth. Is this clear? You don't need to go to college for that. I want you to be able to calculate whatever you have there in different ways, because sometimes Excel does not give you the accurate number. And I want you to know why, if I use the present value formula, for example, to find out future values, I have a problem. And the problem I have is the following. This is one of the problems that I will give you for the first test. For the first test, I will give you the present value. I will give you the rate of return, and I'll give you the number of the periods. And I want you to find out what is the future value. I put colors. I want to find out the future values if I have 3 pieces of information. I magnified so I would not miss anything. And you can say the problem in the book is that you have $100. If you give me 100 without formatting it, I'm not going to give you an A, I'm going to give you an A minus. I want your numbers to be formatted. The rate. The book says that the rate is 6%. If you give me the correct number, not correctly dressed, I'm not going to give you an A, I'm going to give you A minus. And the number of the periods. If the number of the periods are 10 years. If you know all that stuff, you should be able to calculate what is the future value of $100 with 6% after 10 years. Since we are not in Baruch, you don't use calculators for that. Calculators was the technology from the 70s to the 80s. From the 80s to now we have 40 years. And these 40 years we changed the technology. The technology we have now is spreadsheets. The way that I would put that in a spreadsheet is to use a formula. And if I use the financial formula that is for the future value, I have here what is the formula. The formula says, out of this 5, I need to find out 1. If I want to find out 1, I need to know at least 3. That's why the 3 always are involved. The 3 that I have is my rate. If you put here the rate 6% in numbers, I'm not going to not give you a B, I'm going to give you an F. Because if you put the rate here for 6%, if you put the number of periods for 10, and if you put the present value for $100, you may get a numerical answer. You may get a numerical answer. But the reason I'm using Excel and not a calculator is because I want to see what is happening here if I put 5 years. And I want to see if the rate is not 6%, something that it used to be 20 years ago, but now the rate is quarter of 1 point. Why do I need to use Excel, Giselle? Because I need to be able to put different information and automatically, without having to do anything else, Christian, I'm gonna kill you. Christy needs to an applause. She is the senator of the student union. Congratulations. Now you need to resign as a vice president of the club and nominate the guy who speaks Russian to succeed you. Okay. Why Excel? Because I don't want to waste time in calculation. If I don't have $100, I have $500. And I want to see how much $500 will be in the future for a given rate, a given number of periods. I need everything to be done instantly. I need to use the calculator. No. If I use a formula, the formula that I used here does not take the new information I had in the cells. It's using the numerical information that I put it first, and I need to redo it again, which means I want instantly, as I change the information, that to be different. Nadia, don't tape me, tape the part that you have here. So what do I want to do? I'm gonna use a formula. I'm gonna use a future value formula. And I will use whatever information I have as cells. As a result, anytime that the input is going to be different, I'll have a different output. Otherwise, I need to recalculate everything. And if I recalculate everything, it takes more time. And if it takes more time, I'll cut it from your waves. Clear, Radhika?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Then I have a question that you need to tell me. Why this number is negative? Whenever I used a formula, and the formula that says the future value after 5 years is the present value at the current period of time, compounded to the growth factor. Question, why this is a growth factor in my parentheses? This is a growth factor because R is the rate of return, what you get as a percentage. 1 is what you have. If in what you have you add whatever is the return that you have, then you have more money. That is compounded. It is applicable to how many years is done, which means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. This means I will take it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times. Which means multiplies 5 times to itself. Therefore is to the power of 5. If I rewrite it as a formula in general terms, then the future value formula at the end of the period is the present value at the beginning of the period multiplied to the compounding term. Who is there? Alberto. Now, the class starts at 9 o'clock, right? And it's the last time I accept someone after 9 o'clock. Okay, buddy, what's your name? Rayana Martin. Rayana, I want you here on time. You take the trains? Yes. You know, the trains have two characteristics. If you miss it, there is always a train that comes after them. But that has also a train that comes before that. Take the train that comes before that, assuming that something would happen and you can be late. This is the formula that I have. I will use it in specific terms, which means instead of this part, I will put the cell that tells me what it is. This is a quarter of a percentage point. This is 1 year. This is $500, and I want to find what this is. I go on and I put it in my formula. I want you to know how to put your own formulas. This is your present value multiplied to the growth factor of the periods that you have. I said everything needs to be appropriately formatted. Cell C and cell D have exactly the same numerical value. But one is red and the other is not. One is negative and the other is not negative. Clear? And my question is why? And I didn't tell you. And if you go on to your Excel, whenever you use the formula and you ask for help, it tells you what is happening. And I want you to know about it. So all of the books give you a formula that gives you a positive number. Excel gives you a formula that gives you a negative number. That would be your other question in your test next Wednesday. This coming Wednesday we don't have a class. Next Monday we don't have a class. The next class we have is a test. Whatever I'm going to give you in the test, I'm going to tell you today. I'm not going to give you anything that I'm not telling you today. But whatever I'm going to tell you today, I assume that you would know it by that time. This is one question. Why do I get here negative and why do I get there positive? Nadia, I don't want you to tell me. I want everybody to find out. And if you know, you can feel free to talk with anybody in class. But this is what we need really to do. Clear?
Yes. Bless you, bless you.
No, this is something that I cannot use to erase. Oops. So what actually I have? I have 1 year. And in accounting you have debits and credits, right? So Oscar, what's the difference between a debit and a credit?
Debit is something you owe and a credit is something that you have.
Correct. So Rayana has $500. She does not keep this $500. Rayana puts this $500 into her account as a deposit. She doesn't have it. The account has it. It's not in her pocket. That's why I put it as a negative part. After a year, she wants to find out how much money she is going to have. This is the future value that Rayana needs to have. But in order to have a future value, a return rate needs to apply. The money grows if the return rate is positive. But the money doesn't grow if the return rate is 0. Because if this is 0, the money stays as it is. And the money declines, the money declines if the return rate is negative. Negative return rates we didn't have for many, many periods of time in financial terms. All the books are assumed as return rate is positive. All the religions, the main religions, Christianity, Judaism, and Muslim, or I'll put it in historical order, Judaism, Christianity, and Muslim, prefer 0 interest rate. But now, in some places, for some reasons, we have negative rates. There is no book that talks about a negative rate. A negative rate is very common as a return rate in business. Because if I have business with Ebony and we do not do well, we may lose money. And losing money means that next year we have less money than what we have this year. And if we lose money for 3 years in a row, we make a decision to close the business and we file for bankruptcy. That's much more common than the financial negative interest rate. But for the last 10 years, we have a financial issues around the world. And we had a crisis 10 years ago. And the future is unstable. And if the future is unstable, in some places we have negative rates. Negative rate means what? Rahima has $10 billion or $10 million, a lot of money, and she does not want to put that money in the stock market or in the bond market. She wants to keep that money as safe as possible. In any other place that she can put her money, may take a risk. Not that high risk in the bond market, much higher risk in the stock market. And if Rahima wants her money to be safe, she is willing to pay a fee for someone to hold that money. Not that much of a fee, a small fee, but someone to hold that much money. And she puts that money where she considers to be a safe haven. Where is the safe haven for your money?
Bank.
Any bank. Or a Swiss bank.
Good.
So if she wants to put it in any bank, in the United States, she can get 0.25%. Or she may get 1%. Or she may get 2.5% of, usually that doesn't happen with small amount of money. This happens with large amount of money. And she will make so much money. Whenever we want to compare how much money we make, can we compare it? Giselle, I want to see how much money I make. Out of $1, I make $5. How do I compare it?
Subtract.
What?
Subtract from the.
Subtract. So, I'm going on to my example. If I have $1 and I make $5, I know how much money I make if I subtract from whatever I had at the end, whatever I get at the beginning, and I know I made $4 extra. Clear? And if I make $4 extra, I need also to compare how much money I made. I can do it if I compare a different way. And a different way from the subtraction is a division. I take how much money I will make, how much money I have, and I know that I increase my money 5 times. And there is 2 different ways to say what is happening. This particular relationship is if I take the future value and I relate it with the present value in given time period. That tells me how much I increase my money. And that's important. Not in terms of dollars, but as how many times I will increase my money. And in the test, I will ask you a question that it is in the PowerPoint I gave you. This is equal to what? And why is that equal to? Qualisa knows it. I want everybody to know it. The answer is in the PowerPoints I gave you. Or the answer is if you play with the math, simple algebra to the same equation that you have. What do I need? I need to find out what is equal to future value divided by present value. I get it from the formula here. If I take the equation and I want to eliminate the present value from one side, that is coming up, out, and this is what I have on the left side, which means on the right side I have this term. This term also says how much I make out of my money, and I want to tell me why is this telling me how much money I make. I gave you the answer before, right? What did I say? This in graphical terms means that I have 5 years, I have a given return rate, and I make money 1 period, 2 periods, 3 periods, 4 periods, 5 periods. This is the compounding factor. What this means? This means that if you know the return rate is how much you increase your money. And you add it to how much money you have. You have as much as you have. And you compound it for that many times. This tells you how much money you will make. Is this clear? From that point, I want to answer 2 questions. One question is, if I have $5 million and I want that to be for 5 years, and I want to make 5 times that of my money, what is the return rate that I need to have? And I will find it if I play this case here, or if I use the formula. And if I use the formula, I use the formula rate. I use the formula rate. And the rate formula says, if I know that I'm periods, and if I know what is the present value, and if I know what is the future value, I can find out what is the rate. The rate is what I had as a rate. In other words, if you have the same numbers, you should be able to get the same answer. Is this clear? If the rate is 2.5% that I calculated the future value and the present value for 5 years, when I use the rate function, this is what I need to get. what is the mathematical function that you have here and how you will get it is my question. What you need here is you need to eliminate the rate. You have the rate, which means you need to take out the power. The opposite of the power is the root. If you take the nth root from both sides, then the power and the nth root comes out. And on one side you have the growth factor. You want the rate. If you take the growth factor on the other side, -1, this is equal to your rate. This is equal to your rate. Is my math correct? Is my math correct? If I need to put that in math, I need to have the future value related to the present value. And that needs to be to the root of that particular period. So the root is the opposite of the power. This is 1 over the number of the periods minus 1. If this is what I need, this is correct. Is this correct? Yes or no? Is this correct? If this is not correct, then my formula is not correct. And I want you to know how to make the correct formula. Go on to the PowerPoint that I gave you and figure out what is happening. If I want to do the other problem, I want to find out how many years I need to have. So I need to find out how many years I need to have to find how the present value becomes that future value for that rate of return. Now I need to keep the years here. I need to go back to your math book. And I asked Rodika, what is a logarithm? She says, I don't remember. I said, okay, go to Wikipedia, look at the rules of the logs. And if you go to Wikipedia and you look at the rules of the logs, it says if you have a number to a given power, and that is equal to another number, you have an equation. And you find the logarithm of the first part. That is equal to the logarithm of the other part. And you have a logarithm of a number to the power. That is equal to the number multiplied to the logarithm of that number is equal to the other logarithm. You use this formula here. So you say the logarithm of this is equal to the logarithm of this part. Now that disappears from a power, multiply to n. And if you want to find out what is the n, you divide both parts with the logarithm of 1 plus r. So that comes out of here. And here you find out the number of the periods. Can I do it? This is a mistake. I learn from my mistakes. Make mistakes now, not next Wednesday. I want to find out the periods. Do I have a formula for a periods? Number of the periods. I have a formula. In the formula, if I put the rate, if I put the present value, and if I put the future value, I will click it and I will get a number. Is this correct? Is this correct? No, I don't get it. Why I don't get it? The reason I don't get it is because when I go on and I take the formula for the number of the periods, I need to pay attention on this part. What do I need so I can learn it? And I grow and I see how I go on and do it. So, I take the number of the periods, I put the rate, I put the present value, and I put the future value. And I put the future value as a negative. Do I get a number? Do I get a number here from the formula? If I get a number, and the number is, it's in 5 years, I mark it. I know how to use the number of the periods formula in Excel. And the number of the periods formula in Excel tells me exactly the same I got before. Is this coming from this formula? If this is coming from this formula, then I will take the formula that I have. I need the logarithm of what? Of the future value over the present value. Why do I put negative here is my question. That needs to be divided with a logarithm of 1 plus the rate of return. I click it. Is the formula correct? And it says that I made a typo. What is the typo? These are the 2 errors that I can be able to make. The formula is missing. I made it an error. What is the error that I made to that formula? Well, listen. Do I use parentheses? Yes. If I use an opening parenthesis, I need to have a closing parenthesis. For everything that opens needs to close. Do I close all the parentheses I have here? Good. If I go on and I close the second parenthesis, then did I correct it? I put 0. I can get help. Or I can put, do I have things correct? Now my parentheses are fine. Still, I have a problem. What is the problem? It says that is a typo. Excel is made for dummies. You can use help and you can find out. Is this correct? I get a number here. And these are the mistakes that I can be able to have. First name? Ayana, so, right? So, these are the 4 issues that I have. I have 4 interrelated aspects: present value, future value, time, and rate of return. I need to play around with them, and I need to know 3 so I can get the 4th. All of you will have exactly the same problem. All of you would have completely different numbers. You need to know how to use the Excel function. You need to know how to use the math function. And you need to explain what is the meaning of the math function. Pay attention to the power formula. And when you explain it, I want you to tell me with your own words, not copying and paste what is there. But I have few more things here. I have payment and I have an option. What is the payment and what is the option? I have a payment and I have an option. What is the payment and what is the option? I'll start first with the easy part. What is the option? If I have two alternatives, a period of time that has 4 years. And what I want to see is what is happening with my money. Christy wants to be a businesswoman in the United States. And most of immigrants that they want to be business people in the United States, they go to mostly to business, either to food business or to real estate business. And Christy doesn't want to work 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. She wants to go to real estate business. And she has a lot of properties. And you rent apartment from Christy. And you have to pay rent. Today is the 10th of February. If you haven't paid your rent by today, is Christy going to charge you extra money because you are delayed in your payment? And Christy really wants her payments to be done at the beginning of the month. I'll have it here at the beginning of the year. If Christy gets a payment, or if you pay Christy, two different alternatives. If you pay, the money is coming out of you. As the money is coming out of you, the money goes to Christie's. In one case is negative, the other case is positive. You pay, Christie receives. Clear? If you pay and Christie receives, at the end of the period, Christie wants to know how much money she will take out so she will do more business. This is the answer to the question I gave you before. You need to phrase it. Because if you have present and future, you have a deposit and withdrawal. You deposit money into the account, you withdraw money. Here, you don't withdraw any money when you pay, but you have the benefit of staying in the house. And I have to look for two different alternatives. If you do not pay at the beginning of the period, and here is whatever you do, but you pay at the end of the period. I want to know why Christie really wants to have her money at the beginning of the period and not at the end of the period. And I'm give some time. If I observe what is happening for 3 years, you pay at the first year, you pay at the second year, and you pay at the third year. I want to know how much money I have after 3 years with a rate that is 10% of a given periodic payment, PMT, payment. Now, instead of using present value, which is once, instead of using present value, which is once, I have a payment. I do not use a present value. I use a payment. So what is payment? Payment is equal periodic amount instead of either present value or maybe for future value. you may have payments. Like you pay the first of the year, the second of the year, you receive money, and at a given point you want to find out how much is that cumulative money that you received. And you take that money and you use it for another purpose. Is this clear, the difference between deposit and withdrawal, credit and debit? And the same way that we have one payment, we may have sequence of payments. As long as the payments are equal, I can use a payment function. Payment is equal amount, not unequal amount. Can you have a case with unequal amount? Yes, but then you need to make the calculation on your own. Excel does not have a function for that. What is payment? I go on and see what is happening here. What do I have? I have a sequence. 1 year, 2 years. I take it and I go for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And as I have a payment for 10 years, I want to see what is going to happen. I want to see what is going to happen if my payment is $100. And if these $100 are paid at the beginning of the period, if they are paid at the beginning of the period, I have this sequence of payments for 10 years. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I need 10 payments at the beginning of the period. But if the payment is not at the beginning of the period but is at the end of the period, the first period, I don't get anything. The first period, I don't get anything. I get that at the end of the period. At the end of the period is at the beginning of the first period. And as it is at the beginning of the first period, I get X amount of payments. Did I do things right? Here versus here. Here I put a dollar sign. Here I did not put a dollar sign. If I don't put a dollar sign, I don't get the right amount of money as I take it and I drag it down. Is this amount of money at the beginning of the period equal in value to this amount of money that is at the end of the period? Is my question. And I ask this not to someone who finished college, I ask someone who is in business and didn't have any college experience, like Christy's father. And Christy's father says, if you pay me rent at the end of the month and not at the beginning of the month, I don't have as much money as I have at the beginning of the month. Did your father go to college? But he knows. And most of the people that went to college don't know. So I want to see what is happening. Can I have someone to tell me what is happening? I will make a graph. The first case and the second case. I will make deposits. negative because I'm paying the money. I paid for the first year, the second year, the third year, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the seventh, the eighth, the ninth, and the 10th. This is the end of the last year. This is now 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years. After 10 years, I want to find out how much money is in that account. In order to know how much money is in this account, I need to know what is the rate that I have. Any rate. I'll say that this rate is 6%, as my book has. This is in your file that the book has in Excel. And I will say that I have $100 in a payment. And I go to the alternative case, $100. Deposit at the end. First year, second year, third year, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10 year. I deposit $100 here, and I deposit $100 here. Is this the same money? Naya, what do you think?
I think no.
Hmm?
I don't think it's gonna be the same amount because
Because of what? Because of what is the difference? And let's see what is the difference. This part, 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 and this part, and this part are more or less the same. So the difference is going to be from whatever is happening here and whatever is happening here. What is happening here? This is $100 that earns rate once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. This $100 earns a rate for times. That means is the $100 that increases a lot of its value. Here, you don't have that. And this is what you are losing. Second thing, what is happening at the 10th year? I'm changing colors. This $100 earns 1 year. So you have $100 that earns money for 1 year. This is what it earns. But this $100, as you deposit it, you will withdraw instantly. So this particular $100 does not grow at all. So you lose money. And you lose money here because something does not grow. And you lose money here because whatever it grows the most in the alternative, you are missing it. And you need to pay attention. Is your money deposited at the beginning of the period or at the end of the period? And if I want to know what is happening, this is at the beginning and this is at the end. I want to find out what is the future value of the payments that have a given rate. I'll put here the rate. I'll put here the number of the periods for 10 periods. And I will put what is the payment. The payment is what I deposit, negative number. This is my payment. And I need to put here the time. the type. I need to put here the type. Do I know what is a type? The type is something that tells me what is happening. If the money is deposited at the beginning of the year or it is at the end of the year. If I put 0 or I don't put anything, is if the money is deposited at the end of the year. If I put 1, this is what is the deposit at the beginning of the year. I get the idea and I said, this is at the beginning of the year. I put 1. And I would like to see what is happening. I put the rate. The rate should be in cell A3. In cell A3, I need to have a rate. In cell A3, I need to have a rate. If I don't have a rate, is equivalent if the rate is 0%. But if the rate is positive and it's not 0 but is 6%, then I will make close to $400 more because of the rate. I'll take the same case here and I want to find out the formula. And the formula is I want to find out what is the future value. That I have this rate and the number of the periods are 10. And I have a given payment that is $100. But now the rate, the type is 0. And I say this is at the beginning of the payment and this is at the end of the payment. I see that the difference between these two is $79. Where do I get this $79? The $79 is because in this case, this gives me a lot of money because it's compounded for 10 years. In this case, I have a difference. I don't have that equivalent. And this $100 do not give me anything. While this $100 gives me money for 1 year. What do I need to do? I need to calculate what is happening. And in this area here, I want to put formulas. I gave you that, and it is in the book information that you have it, that you really calculate the difference. Everything that you have here should be given the same information. The difference is here and the difference is there. Because this $100 gives you extra money for 1 year. This one stays the same, does not give you anything. And this is what I want you to know about the payment and the option. Is this clear? Good. And one more last time. Not last time, first time I would say. Now, Christy is in business and receives a paycheck from you because you have an apartment, but when she has 1 year, or when she has a 2 year, she does not want you to pay for a year, she wants you to pay for 6 months, or for a quarter, or every month. And I will take 1 year. From here to here is 1 year. But 1 year is equivalent to 12 months. Or 1 year is equivalent to 4 quarters. or 1 year is equivalent to 52 weeks, or 1 year is equivalent to how many checks I get, and I get a paycheck every 2 weeks. So 26 bi-weekly periods. Or 1 year is equivalent to 365 days. Which means, if I want to take the number of the periods, and I want to take the actual rate, I want that to be related to what is a year, and this is an annual rate. And I want to see what is happening here. So if I have 1 year, this is equivalent to 12 months. What do I do here? I multiply how many months I have in a year. So the process I have is a multiplication. But I want to find out the relationship between the annual rate and the monthly rate. Because Coalisa is going to take the money and put it in her account. And she's going to put her money for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. And after the month, she's going to go and check how much money she gets in a month. She needs to know what is the rate at a monthly base. But the bank gives her the rate of an annual base. How does she get the monthly base from an annual rate? And Giselle is in business. She wants to know every day how the business is doing. And if the business has a return rate that is higher than the daily rate of the bank, she's going to keep her money in the business. If the bank gives her higher rate than the return rate of business, she's going to put the money in the bank. What is the rate that is in daily basis? And Coalisa says something that is simple, and she doesn't have to go to college for that. She says, if here you multiply to find out the equivalence, you need to know what is the opposite of multiplication. Coalisa, what's the opposite of multiplication? And Coalisa says it's division. If you need to keep things equal and you multiply on one side, you divide from the other. Therefore, if you want to find the monthly rate, you take the annual rate and you divide it by 12. And you have the monthly rate.
Ooh.
It's not the first time, I don't know when it's going to be the last. Okay, therefore I have a formula. The formula says the future value after that many years. No, I'll keep the years as I had it before. But now the years are expressed in months, in sub-periods. What is happening? If I have the future value at the present time, then I'll have 1 plus the rate. But now the rate needs to be in monthly terms. I take how many? I take what is the rate that is annual, and I will divide it with how many months I have in a year. But how many periods I need to have that compounded? 12. That many years multiplied how many months? Whenever I have in the power multiplication, I have in the rate division. And this is the way that I can be able to have the formula in sub-periods. It's the same thing in sub-periods. which means if I go on and I take 12 months, and if I pay in Astoria 2,000 rand, I can be able to find out how much money this is for all the months. But now the rate that I have here at the annual rate and the rate that I have in monthly terms is gonna be different. 1 year is 12 months. What is happening with the periods? The periods may be 1 year or maybe 12 months. If the rate is 6% in a year, what would be the rate that is applicable for the month? That rate is 0.5 percentage point. What does this mean? In 1 minute I'm gonna be done. If she takes all that money from the beginning of the year and she gets it from the year, compounded for 1 year, she gets 60%, 6%. But if she takes that money split month by month by month by month, and every month she earns 0.5 percentage point, then at the end she should have exactly the same amount of money. Otherwise, she's cheated. And she doesn't want to be cheated. And this is the importance of taking a period and splitting it to some periods, which means common sense. The smaller the period, the more periods you have, the smaller the rate of that particular period. Clear? Done for today. I want you to review all that stuff. I want you got all the videos here, right?
Yes.